Hey, Witches of the Moon. It is Jess Spellbound here, your Wednesday hostess, and this week we are talking about how to. So I waited all day because in my brain was spinning like, what am I gonna have to, like, what can I show, what can I do? And because it felt like something that was gonna have to be very tangible. It was gonna have to be me sitting here showing you how to do something. And then that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. It was just the way, my viewpoint of it, of me showing you how to do something, which is great, right? But I didn't want to do something that forced somebody who was interested in what I was doing, that you would say, okay, well, now I need X, Y, and Z. Let me go to the store. I didn't want to show you something that was going to cost you money in order to replicate what I was showing you. So my idea in this, by thinking about it and looking at it from different perspectives, because I have been, I want to call it the depth year, but you know what? Realistically, I was in a depth year for 5 years where I could not afford to spend a dime on anything that wasn't super essential to running my household. So now I am in this space where I can afford to spend a little bit more money, but I've gotten so used to not spending the money that I went nuts last year because I could afford it. And I said, okay. And I bought all of these stupid tarot decks. I say stupid because they were unnecessary. And there is even a few that I am pitching. And this goes along with the video that I just did for my personal page that I'm going to be putting up. But so what I wanted to do was reinforce for you and give you ideas of how to work with what you've already got. So I'm going to give you an idea of a sacred incense, or but then I'm going to kind of dial it back down to making your spirituality isn't supposed to cost an arm and a leg. I mean, listen, if that's how you do it, then great. I think that's amazing that you can. But I know for me, when I started watching YouTube about 2 years ago, and that I had no idea that paganism and tarot tube and all of these really amazing resources were out there, but I latched onto that and I was like, oh, well, my witchcraft isn't valid because I am not buying this, and this. Or, it became where my magical practice, my spiritual practice was then tied to something financial. And I realized that is when I started buying a ton of things, but I wasn't using them. I wasn't, because these things weren't connecting with me because they had come from some place that had bowls and bowls of stones. It wasn't something that came by happenstance or by synchronicity. It was just, I walked into a store, I thought it looked pretty, and I bought it. Now, I'm not saying that is a bad thing, but for me, being on both sides of the coin, being able to not financially be able to afford it, but really fall in love with a more simplistic magic spirituality, and then being able to afford it and having 35 tarot decks, but really only sticking to a few of those because I was buying them in a way of going, oh, I really love that artwork, let me buy it. Ooh, I didn't sit with the idea of that deck. So the ones that I sat with the idea of that deck, with the artwork of that deck, I bought and I still use. The ones that I just thought were pretty, in a walkthrough of a couple of cards that I watched, I bought them and I don't use them. Now, again, on the flip side of that, there were cards that I bought in that moment that totally took me by surprise because I liked the cover of the deck. So it can go either way, right? I'm getting off topic. What else is new? Welcome. So that's where my hard thinking started to come in, was because I didn't want to say to you, hey, here's this incense blend that I use as my sacred space blend. And you go, oh my gosh, well, I need juniper berry, which, by the way, only some juniper berries can be burned. Other ones are poisonous, so don't just willy-nilly buy juniper berry. But, or a jasmine, like Jasmine's one of my favorites. It's a necessity for me. I do really love that, but I don't need it. So I didn't want to show you the blends that I use. I didn't want to direct you in a way of where you felt like you had to follow my recipe to a T, or where then you had to go out and get and buy. I want to be able to reaffirm for you that it is okay to buy the incense from Walmart. It is okay to break a branch off a tree, use a kitchen knife to debark it, and use that as your wand, because I have both. There was a time where I could not afford it. Then I started looking into local trees. And you know what? I have a ton of white birch around me. So white birch it is, because white birch has great properties. Give yourself the permission to use what is accessible to you. I've always loved spirit dolls. Always. I was not going to pay $50 for a spirit doll. So what did I do? My kids, as they were aging out of their clothes, I started saving them. Clothes that I didn't wear anymore, I started saving them. So those are, and I'm still to this day using the fabrics from old, discarded clothing, whether it was myself or my kids, fabric that I just liked. I thought a top was pretty. And then I started using those to make poppets, to make spirit dolls, to make, you know what, not spirit dolls. I don't want to say spirit dolls because it's not a doll that a spirit is going into. It's more of a spiritual poppet, maybe. Jam bunch of stuff, crystals, correlating herbs, petitions, all kinds of stuff, and I put it around in rooms for protection, for prosperity, for love, for abundance, all of that great stuff. So, I think there's really accessible ways of doing it. So let me show you. Again, this isn't going to be any kind of tutorial, so if that's what you wanted, I'm really, really sorry, but I have to stay true to how I feel. And if you don't agree with it, to each their own. So I just wanted to show you some playing cards that I have, because I would use these to read with. They're the Princess Bride because I love Princess Bride. But, so you, realistically, if you can learn a system of card reading, you don't need to be spending $30 on a deck or $80 or whatever it is, I just want you to be able to improvise and know that it's okay. So all of my magical books have been sprayed down with the holy water that I make, the spiritual waters that I make for every full moon. So when I make them and then I start a new book, I will put that in like a little plastic spray bottle, and I'll just spray the entire book. I'll spray the pages, let it dry, and then use it. I will consecrate my pens, the certain pens that I use for, sorry, my kids are apparently arguing. The spiritual pens and pencils and the paints that I use. So I use a lot of watercolor and like watered down acrylics. So I will always use my spiritual water for that. But I don't have to go out and buy, I don't go out and buy anything really. And the idea of this depth year, and that's why I said I hesitated to call it a depth year, because realistically it's just my lifestyle. It's the way that I choose to live my life. Now, did I go crazy last year and buy ridiculous amounts of tarot decks? Absolutely, because when I'm watching YouTube and I'm watching tarot people on there and they have these giant bookcases full of tarot, I got a sense of feeling like, well, I'm not authentic because I don't have any of these. And as I started to pare it down, this is my authentic me. I don't collect tarot. I use tarot. I don't need a million choices. I want the ones that call to me, because that's what makes it special for me. And, everybody has their own way. If you're a tarot collector, wonderful. That's what calls to you. But for me, I really enjoyed you know, I'll replace decks as they come. But this was one of my favorite ones, you know, the Wildwood. And you know what? This was one that I had gotten in, I don't know, 2012. Hasn't been that long for this deck. But my Lonza Tarot I've had since 2003. That's this one. This one's out of print, but this is my favorite deck. This is my trusty, this is a newer copy because mine being so old, I had to pay for somebody else's copy. But I will continue to do that as long as I feel like these cards still speak to me. But I don't need, you know, like I said, I want to give you the tools to know and give you the, I'm sorry, I'm getting text messages. Give you the tools and tell you, again, to give yourself the permission. I'm sorry.
Yeah. She put my dress, and she is my dress.
Okay, yes, that is your dress.
So John said this.
No, it's not anymore. It's yours.
No, John said yes.
Okay.
It's yours, and it's no.
No, it's your dress. It's your dress.
I try to yell at her. No.
Stop yelling at her.
She's not listening.
Okay. Can you please go back and finish your movie while Mommy does the video? Thank you. Sorry, I can't pause it and pick it up, or I would, and it's already Wednesday, so I want to get this up. But
I'm stuck in the Jonas room. I'm stuck in the Jonas room.
Gianna, can you please help her come back in the room? Just ask her for help, Eliana. Gianna,
What?
help your sister, please. I'm sorry. So like I said, I just want to give you permission. So here's a way of, like I said, if you need a spiritual incense, there is nothing wrong with going through your herbs in the kitchen. There's nothing wrong with buying incense from Walmart. If that's your choosing, you know what, the Dollar Tree, whatever. Now for me, this is where I kind of, my brain starts to spin, right? Not spin, but think about things outside of the box. So I love pillar candles. Pillar candles for some reason, and I like smaller pillar candles. Not votives. I like them long and, you know, I like them the way I like them. And they're hard to find. And when I can find the size that I like, they're expensive because somebody hand poured it, which is wonderful. But again, I want something that I put my energy into. So what I'll do is I'll buy those taper candles when they're on sale in all different colors. I melt them down and I use a duct taped toilet paper roll because it's about, I'll make it smaller so it's not so wide, so it's not the size of a taper can, a votive. I'll duct tape it so it's smaller, and I'll use that as a mold with some tin foil on the bottom. And I'll add my own herbs, oils, whatever to it. I've even cut up petition paper and put it in there, or wrote very tiny petition papers and shoved them into the hardening wax. I mean, and that literally cost me cents compared to dollars. So there's always a way of you being able to take an idea of something that you have, of something that you need for your craft. If you feel like, oh, I needed that, I need this candle. Like it's very hard for me to find like true black candles. A lot of them just are kind of dipped in black and then the inside of them is white or even a murky gray, and I don't like that. So again, I will buy taper candles from Michael's or from anywhere, and I'll melt them down to the specific size that I need, because I know how long I have to sit around and wait for a candle to burn if I don't want to blow it out. So it's little things like that that you can tailor it to yourself and it not be a huge expense. So I guess my how-to is how to give yourself permission to not have to buy everything that you see on YouTube. You know, I know that the things are like so gorgeous, like so many, I've had like the Witch's Moon on back burner for months because I keep going, oh my gosh, I want that. Every time I watch an opening of it, I put it in, I add it to a cart. And then it's not just the Witch's Moon that I need the Witch's Roots because I work with a lot of herbs. So that's something I enjoy. But then when I look at the prices of it, I'm like, everything in that box I could put together. I get it's a luxury and it's beautiful and it's great. And I really appreciate watching other people open it. But at the same time, it's like, well, you know what? This month for me doesn't feel like that. So what if I got a box that I didn't like? Or give yourself permission to not have the fear of missing out. I think that the tarot tubers tagged it as like FOMO, right? The fear of missing out. Do not get overrun by this expectation that you have to have a gajillion crystals, that you have to have a gajillion tarot decks, that you have to have a gajillion of anything, candles, all of this stuff. Like, is it nice to have candles on to the side in case you need to do working quick? Sure, but you know what? White works for everything. So realistically, you don't need 800 colors of candles or even 5 colors of candles. One color of candle will do. White. Am I rambling? I can't tell anymore. But I wanted to do a how-to on that. How to avoid FOMO. How to avoid unnecessary angst of not being able to do your magical practice because it is reliant on something that you have to purchase. Because I think that really takes away from the spiritual aspect of it, right? If you get hung up on the small details of it, I feel like if you get hung up on the material of it, it is no longer a spiritual practice. Now, if you don't use your magic as a spiritual practice, then go for it. Do what works for you. Do whatever works as far as your energy and your spellcraft and the way you do things. Mine is directly tied to my spirituality. Mine is a direct correlation with my spiritual beliefs. So every time I do a working, I am calling on my deity. Every single time. There's not anything I do that I do not expect to say a prayer for my deity and say a prayer to my guides. So I think that really sums it up for me. So please realize that you are pretty much all you need in your spiritual belief, and that it is not something that has to get encumbered by material. Material is nice, sure, but like, look, those came from Walmart, and you know what? They're called spirituality and patchouli. Now, I will try and kind of, oh my gosh, please, all right, maybe we're not going to do that. Just, I made you dizzy for no reason, but maybe we can go this way instead. So there's my stuff, and then I do have an apothecary here full of stuff, but as you'll see, there is like a mix of stuff that I got out of my kitchen, and then stuff that I got from the store, stuff from a tea shop. I mean, you guys, the sky is the limit. You are your own manifestation of magic. But don't feel like you have to do these things. Don't feel like you have to be, like you have to have what somebody else has for your magical practice to make sense. So I'm sorry I did that flip around. Now everything's a little bit crazy. But yeah, that's it, you guys. All right. Blessed be. I hope you all had a wonderful day, and I will see you next week. Blessed be.